I was always ready to kill somebody if I had to.
Sometimes CIA is blamed for creating a conflict in different parts of world for the American interest.
I've had that argument even with Taliban commanders. With the US, we tend to make alliances or get involved in countries. And sure, task. I sat across from a Taliban commander in like 2007 as far as what Pakistan and their relationship with the Taliban will look like in the future. I don't know. The Taliban, are enjoying success now, but in the long term, they're going to have a very hard time governing and staying in power.
Like you controlled the situation with so much difficulties when you were in Afghanistan.
There is no national unity in Afghanistan, and I do not see that happening for a long, long time. The tribal differences, the cultural differences between the various people that comprise Afghanistan are too different.
नमस्कार, जय हिंद। मैं हूं ऋषि सिंह और आप देख रहे हैं भारत तक। आज हमारे साथ ऐसे दो शख्स जुड़े हैं जो नेटफ्लिक्स पर रिलीज हुई स्पाई ऑप्स डॉक्यू सीरीज का हिस्सा हैं। आज हम उनसे तमाम मुद्दों पर बात करेंगे क्योंकि ये सीरीज ऐसे मुद्दों पर है जो आपने सुने तो होंगे मगर उन बारीकियों के बारे में आप पहली बार जानेंगे। हमारे साथ जॉन है जो कि बिग मीडिया के सीईओ हैं और इस सीरीज के को प्रोड्यूसर हैं, और दूसरे शख्स हैं एक एक्स CIA ऑफिसर जिन्होंने अफगानिस्तान में रहकर आतंकवाद जैसे मुद्दों पर काम किया। इनका नाम है गैरी हैरिंगटन। हेलो गैरी, हेलो जॉन। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, थैंक्स फॉर जॉइनिंग मी हियर ऑन भारत तक।
Namaskar, Rishi.
Good morning, and you're welcome.
Congratulations on the success of your latest docu-series, Spy Ops.
Thank you. We're very pleased with the performance of the series, and happy to report that the series has made it into the top 10 on Netflix in over 20 countries worldwide, and very happy to hear that people are enjoying it throughout India.
Gary, I have a question for you. Your 7th episode on Netflix, people loving that part. Gary, as a journalist, I will put questions forward from the series. You yourself become a Canadian journalist. You convince the bombers with your intellect and conversation. How did that happen, and how was that experience?
Before I actually even joined the Central Intelligence Agency, I was a special operations soldier. So I had a lot of years in different combat zones, and particularly working in the Middle East. So I think I understood the people that I met or worked with. And with the suicide bombers, I mean, when you fight wars, we all know when we have an enemy, sure, there are some people that you need to kill because they will never change their mind and they will always be trying to kill you. But then there are a lot of other people that are involved because, for example, with a suicide bomber, they're human beings. They have no choice. They've been brainwashed, and they feel hopeless, and that the only thing that will make their life worthwhile is to carry out that mission. I've learned in my time as a agent or intelligence officer that the best I can be when I want to deal with someone or convince them to my way of thinking, first I have to rely on just being myself, who my personality is, to allow my empathy and compassion for the human side of even my enemy to come through. And with the suicide bomber, yes, I did that. Now, I do want to clarify that while, since you're in journalism, that I was in Afghanistan as a diplomat at that time. I was not posing as a journalist. Sure, with these two suicide bombers, I had my guys, the Afghans, tell them that I was a Canadian journalist, but that would be what we call a throwaway alias, just because I'm never going to tell him my real name. Well, usually not tell him my real name. And then I would just say, that, okay, just to fool that individual that I'm a journalist. Because if I walked in and said I was an American, they may try to harm me.
But Gary, if you see that whatever you did in Afghanistan, you tried to like control the terrorism. But seeing the like current scenario of Taliban, it's clearly now Taliban versus Pakistan. What do you think will be Pakistan's fate?
With Pakistan, it's always been an enigma to me because, sure, I felt that most during my years, we talk really 2001 through the end of 2008 in Afghanistan, that a lot of the issues that were of the Taliban sanctuaries in Pakistan and Miram Shah and those tribal areas, I felt that I couldn't really get to the root of the problem because it was in Pakistan. And part of it, I think, goes back to the drawing of the Darfur line, and that we divided up culturally the Pashtuns on sides of this Darfur line, which, sort of caused, I think, a lot of the issues that we came to realize as far as what Pakistan and their relationship with the Taliban will look like in the future. I don't know. The Taliban, are enjoying success now, but in the long term, they're going to have a very hard time governing and staying in power.
But coming back to series, what is exactly your message for your audience? Because people loving your episodes, all the episodes, but your part is very good. In India, I can tell you that Gary Harrington, as a CIA officer, telling all the reports to the audience, people loving it. So, what is your message for humanity relating to the series?
My message to humanity and to all, and first of all, thank you for all the fans in India. We really appreciate it. And I personally appreciate it. I've been a soldier and an intelligence officer. I was always ready to kill somebody if I had to. But we're all human, and there are people that we disagree with, but yet you can find some common task. I sat across from a Taliban commander in like 2007. At one time in 2002, he and I were in the same battle against each other. And he was arguing with me and complaining about how the U.S. had turned, in the 80s we'd been allies and now we had turned against them. And, I said, hey, in that battle, if I could have, I would have killed you and you would have killed me. But now we're both here in this moment at this time. So should we go outside and try to finish killing each other, or should we find a way to work together? And, we found a way to work together. So I guess my point of my episode, or maybe how that was a little bit different, is yes, I have my goals for my intelligence agency and for my country in the back of my mind, but we always have to remember that person sitting across from us, even our enemy, is also a human, and if we try hard enough, we will find a way to make that connection with it.
John, my very first question for you, this type of series takes lot of research, lot of time and lot of hard work. How challenging it was for you?
So our company, Big Media, has tremendous experience at producing documentary series, and we've worked with U.S. government agencies before, but I can tell you that this was by far the most challenging series we've ever produced. It took us longer than most of the series we've made, and as you can imagine, with the sensitive nature of the stories, it's important that we coordinate with parts of the U.S. government, in particular CIA, to make sure that the people who are appearing in the series are approved and the subject matter has also been approved. The product came out great, and it was worth the effort for sure.
When you heard about these stories, did it affect through a process like in any manner? Because all the episodes are different and every episode has some good story, some good research. So what was your reaction when you heard to make a spy ops, a special type of series?
So when we started to make this series, we realized that the subject matter would be challenging. The people we're interviewing would not be used to being on camera as much. And also, as you mentioned, all of the episodes are very different. And in fact, some of them we had to work with other intelligence agencies in other parts of the world. So the research team had to go very deep into a wide variety of stories. Usually when a documentary series is being made, it's about one subject or one story or one region. In this case, we had stories from all over the world, all different regions and all different time periods. So our research team and production team did an incredible job doing that, and I commend them for it.
Gary, whatever happened in 2021 when Taliban took over the Afghanistan, we have read articles which said that sometimes CIA is blamed for creating a conflict in different parts of the world for the American interest. What is your say on this?
You know, I've had that argument even with Taliban commanders. With the U.S., you know, we tend to make alliances or get involved in countries. And sure, usually when the U.S. gets involved in a country in its internal aspects, it's a covert action that is run by the CIA. And later it turns into something more. And you know, we have different administrations that control our government. So, for example, with Ronald Reagan, he wanted to combat Soviet expansion. So in the 80s, they worked with from Pakistan, worked with Afghans to, help overthrow the Soviets. Then once that was done, Reagan leaves, and the U.S. interest in remaining in Afghanistan, that's gone. So the way the U.S. government works, we left. And sure, by our leaving, did it have Taliban empowered to grow to the threat that they actually became and were able to take power in Afghanistan originally? Maybe, but that's just how the national interest of the United States works. We don't have a 25 or 50-year plan. We go 4 to 8 years based on the different administrations. After we came in 2001, it was, to be honest, quite easy against a power like the Taliban for us to knock the Al-Qaeda and Taliban off the top of the hill and defeat them. But even in those days, I knew that eventually they would recover, and it's their territory. They would be able to come back and make things difficult. So towards the end, when the U.S. decided that the interest was to leave Afghanistan, I understand that. And we cannot stay in a country forever and ever and keep losing Americans to a cause that's unending. But the way we did it, and the fact that we didn't spend the last 2 years while we were in Afghanistan preparing to leave properly and orderly and securely, that was a horrible mistake that, I feel was probably made for political reasons and without adequate consideration of the lives of not only the Americans, but the Afghans involved.
You controlled the situation with so much difficulties when you were in Afghanistan. You played an important role as far as the situation in Afghanistan is concerned, but looking at the recent times, your efforts sort of became futile. What do you think should be blamed for the current situation in Afghanistan?
there is no national unity in Afghanistan, and I do not see that happening for a long, long time. The tribal differences, the cultural differences between the various people that comprise Afghanistan are too different, and there are too many outside players. They're meddling, trying to get their interests. So I believe that as long as the Taliban is in control, they pose a threat to the long-term safety of not only the U.S., but any country that loves freedom and is opposed to what the Taliban believes. So yeah, I believe that the world should carefully watch Afghanistan and be prepared for what might emerge as the years go by.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing the story about your experiences with Bharat Tak. It was an amazing and enlightening conversation, John and Gary.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Rishi. We appreciate you having us on, and hope everyone in India enjoys Spy Ops on Netflix.